Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Investor Reverse Pitch today. We're so excited to have you joining us. My name is Margaret Ann. I'll be your co-host for this event, and I'm the co-founder of Spice Startups.
My name is Purdy. I'm the other co-founder of Spice Startups and your other co-host for this event.
So a little bit about what you'll be hearing today. You're going to hear from 5 different VCs who are going to be pitching you, the founders. You're going to be hearing it from Forward Partners, Force Over Mass Capital, JamJar Investments, Notion, and Community Growth Ventures.
What's going to happen is they're going to have 5 minutes to pitch to you, and then following that there'll be a 5-minute Q&A, which is your opportunity to ask them and grill them on all those things that they normally grill you on. So what is unique about them? What value can they bring? What investments have they done in the past that are relevant? All of those kind of things. All you need to do is ask in the comments section, and we can already see that there's loads of comments coming in with everybody saying hello. So just use that to ask the VCs questions, and we will flash up relevant questions on the screen, and then the VCs will answer them. So you can really use this as an opportunity to get all those answers that you want.
A little bit about Spice Startups. So we're a boutique firm and we create custom incubators and accelerators for our clients. We're also going to be launching a cohort in the not too far distant future for first-time founders who are coming from industries that have been disrupted from COVID. Our link will be in the email you'll get afterwards, or you can just Google Spice Startups. And so now we're going to pass it over to Anthony, who's going to tell you all about SeedLegals.
So, hey, everyone, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for the Spice team for organizing. So at SeedLegals, we do something like 1 in 6 of all early stage funding rounds now go through SeedLegals in the UK. So we see a huge number of startups. There are more than 15,000 UK companies on SeedLegals. We're doing over 100 funding rounds per month. And although we focus on doing the legals for the round, our mission is to help founders get investment ready, get aware, understand what investors are looking for, and figure out how to pitch to them. Many of you may have seen our SeedLegals Pitch Deck Clinic. So if you haven't, Google SeedLegals Pitch Deck Clinic, and you'll see how to create, hopefully, that perfect pitch deck for investors. I'm delighted after helping many founders, go through all the pain and the stress of pitching to investors, to today put some investors on stage and have them pitch to you. And the idea is that you'll understand the things that investors are looking for. And it's a unique opportunity to not just guess the psyche of the investors, but you may see some investors are purely from the heart. I love this. Some of them are purely from the maths. Your EBITDA is X. We may see very different behaviors. And of course, once you have an investor interested in investing in you, head over to SeedLegals and we'll help you close your funding round quickly, efficiently, and reliably. So without any more ado from me, thanks, Spice team. Over to you.
So we're going to get started, right?
Yes.
Yes. So our first investor is Katie from Forward Partners. We are going to bring her on now. Just a reminder, she's got 5 minutes, and then we're going to go straight to the Q&A. So any questions that are coming up during her pitch, just use the chat function, and we will go from there, and then we will reappear later. So we are going to bring Katie on now.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's exciting to be here on the hot seat, and thanks to Margaret, Purdy, and Anthony for having me. Appreciate it. So my name's Katie Kim. I am an investor with Forward Partners. I'll get to Forward in a bit, but prior to Forward, I was an investor with Vantage Capital, which is a global Series A fund based in Vancouver, Canada, which is where I'm from. So in terms of Forward, we're an early stage venture capital firm meets startup studio. We're based here in London, and we have 81 million assets under management, almost entirely backed by BlackRock. We look to invest in startups from day 0 to Series A. On the pre-seed side, our check sizes are between 200K and 500K, and then on the seed side is between 500K and £2 million. We invest in UK-based businesses within the sectors of applied AI, marketplaces, and e-commerce. We look at about 4,000 companies a year and have invested in 60 portfolio companies to date. Some of those include Patch, Koru Kids, Drover, Lexu, Appear Here, Makers, and plenty others. So our USP as a fund is that in addition to the typical board support and business support that you get from other VCs, we also have a very talented team of a very talented studio team who provide operational support to our portfolio companies. So we're very hands-on VCs. The studio team is split across 4 main areas. That's product, engineering, growth marketing, and recruitment. So to put that scale into perspective, there's 5 of us on the investment team and 20 on the studio team. So we're quite heavy on the support side. We also offer free office space to our portfolio company, to our pre-seed founders, to sit in-house with us. And the idea there is that we want them to use our studio team as their own headcount as they help build and launch some of their products. Some pre-seed founders have even referred to us as co-founders in the early days, which is quite nice. Our seed companies tend to use us more on a project-by-project basis. And right, so here's the hook in my pitch. In 2018, we crunched the numbers against Crunchbase's averages, and we found proof in our brand promise. So we found that Ford's portfolio companies raised 26% faster, were 4 times more likely to raise Series A rounds, and had a 55% uplift in valuations from pre-seed to Series A. In terms of what we're looking for when we invest in companies, I'm looking for strong founding teams with a unique proposition, defensible moat, and who are playing in a market size that is about minimum of 1 billion in the UK. So if you fit this bill, please come and speak with me. There are a few ways to get in touch with us. We run office hours on a monthly basis, and we also run the Founders Program 2 times a year. We've been running office hours for about 6 years now, and they are 20-minute virtual meetings with a member of the investment team where you can pitch for investment or advice. We have about 120 applications per month, and we take in about 20 founders a month. So we've seen 9,000 applications since inception of office hours, and we've invested in 6 companies through that channel. Founders Program is, on the other hand, is something that's a bit newer. So we launched that at the beginning of last year. And it's actually the 4th cohort just finished a few weeks ago. It's essentially a 5-week program to help very early stage founders validate their idea and become VC ready. So each session is run by a forward expert, and we cover customer development, growth marketing, idea validation, fundraising, and then we finish off with a pitch to the investment team on the last day. So that is run for 8 select founders. It's a very hands-on program. We run it once in the spring and once in the fall. And since launching last spring, we've made 1 investment through Founders Program. If you are early on in your ideation process, I encourage you to also check out our blog. It's called thepathforward.io. It's got a lot of neat guides that's written from investors and studio team alike to help you get your startup off of the ground. And that was my pitch. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to your questions and hearing from you.
I'm just going to jump back on to let everybody know what happens next. So we had a bunch of questions come in, which is great, and all do please feel free to continue asking any questions. And I'm going to pop one up on the screen now, and then we'll continue going through. So just answer the questions as they pop up.
Should I read them out loud, or can everybody see them? So, do you believe the studio increases the chances for growth and survival in a startup? According to the stats I said earlier, I think it absolutely helps in getting you from pre-seed to Series A, which is a gap that Ford identified early on. There's definitely a gap in support at the pre-seed stage, which is why we chose to focus on the pre-seed and seed stage. So I absolutely do think that it increases the chances for survival up to the Series A and above. How do you and founders figure out the check size for pre-seed startup and which doesn't yet know its capital needs? So as a ballpark, our pre-seed check sizes are between 200K and 500K. And then for the seed side is between 500K and £2 million. That seems to fit the bill for most companies out there, though check sizes are starting to increase as we've seen over the past couple of years. If companies don't quite know what you need yet, the VC that's interested should be able to help you out on that end. I would personally say that if you have money available, you should take it, as you'll need to continue raising more and more money as in subsequent rounds. But if you are raising, if the VC thinks that you're raising too little, then we might step in and explain to you, especially we do that with our studio team as well. We'd be able to tell you why we think you need more capital and where we think you could get with more before you have to raise your next round. What methods do we use to determine valuation for early stage pre-revenue startups? Yeah, this one's interesting. There's a number of different ways to value a company, but we could be here all day. At the pre-seed stage, there's a big question when it's pre-revenue, pre-product, and there isn't a lot of data points to go off of. I think at the pre-seed stage, most investors would say it's essentially a math calculation to make sure that we can get a interesting enough percentage for it to be worth our time. So we invest in 10 to 12 companies per year. If we're getting anything less, we're aiming for about 15 to 25% equity. And if anything less than that, less than say 10%, it's not really worth our time. So we need to make sure that we can get that equity in the amount that we're giving in. Defensibility to me as an investor. So in this order, I'd probably, so team for sure. There's obviously product is important, but making sure that you can, so I'm going to change this question around. So the three things that I look in, because defensibility can change depending on your industry and the product and your solution. So I'm going to change this question around and say, what are the three things that I'm most interested in as an investor? And I'll say, the market, the size and the opportunity, followed by the team, and then followed by the product and solution. So the market size, like I said, I'm looking at $1 billion minimum in the UK. And then I'm looking at the competition within that market as well. Is the market large enough? And if it is really large, are there lots of players in there that are well funded? And what's your USP? And then on the team, why are you the right team to succeed and execute on this idea? And then product last, because if you don't have a large enough market to get venture capital scale returns, and if you don't have a team to execute, then it doesn't really matter how good your solution is in the end.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Katie. That was really great. I did see one comment in there asking to repeat the name of the blog. Would you mind repeating?
Yeah, sure. It's thepathforward.io. You can find it on our website as well as forwardpartners.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We are going to be bringing on Belinda from JamJar Investments now.
Hello.
Hi, Belinda.
Hi, how are you guys? It's so great to be here. So thanks so much for taking the time to join us this afternoon. How shall I summarize JamJar? So quick overview. JamJar is the VC fund of the guys who founded Innocent Drinks. So Adam, Richard, and John set up Innocent in the late 90s, and they really struggled to raise any money. They knocked on everyone's door, everyone in the UK, got turned down by everyone, and got to the point where they sent an email to everyone in all of their inboxes combined with the subject line, "Do you know anyone who's rich?" Surprisingly, this led to 2 leads. One was apparently a bit dodgy, so they didn't pursue it. And the other was a guy in America who said his syndicate might be willing to put in the money. His syndicate turned around and said, no way. And this angel from America, feeling like he'd committed them the 200K, put it in, more out of believing that he'd promised them the money rather than real business conviction, apparently. But it wasn't a bad investment. 15 years later, and having not raised again, they managed to exit to Coke in 2013. So they had by that point established themselves pretty well as like the biggest juice brand in Europe, and exited for about $500 million. So we just invest some of the money from that sale, and we invest in early stage consumer brands across Europe. Our mission is very much to help challenger brands win the fight. And when we say that, when we talk about challenger brands, we're talking sector wise. We look at pretty much most things under the sun, as long as there's a really strong consumer brand, there's a powerfully, meaningfully better experience going on for consumers, And with sectors, as I said, most things under the sun, as long as we believe that it is pushing the world in the right place. So, gambling, betting, stuff like that, probably not, but most other things, yes. And the way we invest, we typically invest about 500K check sizes and typically at about seed to Series A. And then once we do invest, the way we work with the companies in our portfolio is super led by the founders themselves. The guys, the innocent guys who are 3 of our 4 partners, they are fully aware of what it means to be founders and how it can feel to have investors telling you what to do. So we totally let the founders call the shots. In our full spectrum, we have one end of the spectrum where founders will ask us to be super hands-off. They just want a couple of phone calls a year. That's totally fine. We'll just be on the end of the line as and when needs be. And then in the middle of the spectrum, we have some founders who ask for specific sessions as and when their business needs. So, the way Innocent was run was Adam was in charge of the international expansion of Innocent and the commercial negotiations that Innocent had to go through with the likes of Tesco, Asda, Sainsbury's of the world, whilst John was in charge of operations and supply chain, which for a chilled juice brand wasn't super easy, as I'm sure you can imagine. And then finally, Rich was in charge of operations. Rich was in charge of culture, marketing, and branding, and going those 3 things at scale. Meanwhile, Katie was also at Innocent with the guys, and she left with them to start JamJar from the ground up, and she looks after a lot of the fundraising strategy. So with those combined, and when founders need, we'll deploy the most appropriate partner for whatever problem it is that they're looking to tackle. And then finally, on the most hands-on end of the spectrum, we sit on the board of some of our companies. We sit on them if they ask us to and if we believe we can really add value. And so that used to be about 1/3 of our companies, but I think that's gone up in the last year or so. So that's a quick sort of speed run through about JamJar. I myself have been there for the last 2.5 years. Before that, I was at a couple of startups, having interned myself in that world, having got a taste of it and realized I definitely want to be in the thrilling world of high growth companies, but was too, decision paralyzed to pick one. So found VC to be a good way to reconcile it. And in the team, there's 9 of us in total, 7 on the investment team. And amongst this investment team, we all basically look at everything. And there's no sort of specific person that specializes in specific areas. So yeah, all of us look at everything across Europe. I think I forgot to mention, we just invest in Europe. And I'll look at most things. Things that are particularly interesting right now are personalization in health, trends moving towards helping anything that we do in the house be as good an experience as what we do outside. And then finally, we have been spending a lot of time in pets as well. We were previously in tails, and it's an interesting area that we keep seeing fun things come out of. So that's it. I hope that was useful, and looking forward to questions. Great. Does JamJar invest in pre-seed or strictly seed to Series A? No, so seed to Series A is our sweet spot. We've definitely done pre-seed before. We've also gone beyond Series A before. I should say the money that we invest is still all the private cash of the guys themselves. And the sort of what that allows is for us to be pretty flexible in how we invest. So whilst 500K is our typical check size, we've also done 1 million before. We've also done much, much less than 500K before. Which are some of JamJar's most successful investments? Good question. So some of the ones that we're really proud of course, companies like Deliveroo, Street Bees, Babylon Health fits in there too, Small, which does D2C laundry capsules. Those are a few off the top of my head. Tony's Chocolonely is a recent addition. Wild Natural Deodorants are more recent ones. Which startup metrics are the most important? That's a good question, and it's kind of a tough one to answer, just because when we say we look at consumer, we do mean we look at pretty much all consumer sort of sectors under the sun. What metrics that mean something to us and really stand out are any metrics that show consumers loving the experience. So for an app like me, that might be the amount of time that they spend dwelling on it, how often they come back to it, when they open it, how much are they engaging, what different features are they using. For a subscription product, it will be along the lines of, how long are they subscribing for, how is the cohort that joins in a specific month, how long are they retained for, and then much earlier stuff than that is also all to do with sort of how much is it costing you to acquire, how much of that growth is coming from word of mouth. So it's a real variety of things, but anything that shows us that consumers are loving it and they're telling other consumers about it is exciting for us. Preferred D2C subscriptions or B2C e-commerce? I wouldn't say we have a specific preference for either model. Different models, different work for different things. For high frequency purchases that are different, perhaps difficult to access in stores, D2C subscription might be better for. And there are certain instances where it might not be as frequent and subscription isn't needed, where e-commerce might suit. We definitely aren't aligned specifically to one. Would you invest in a tech startup that is deploying newly created technology but don't hold any patents? Yeah, for sure. That happens all the time. For us, the question around newly created technology, or the exciting part of it, I guess, is that it helps you build a moat around whatever you're building. And if it's patented, that strengthens the level of the moat by some way. But that's not to say it's a silver bullet, and other ways of building defensibility are super important to us anyway. So yes, we would. Would you consider investing in companies with a single founder? Yeah, of course. We have in the past, and I'm sure we will again. For us, a team is a great thing because what one person lacks, hopefully someone else on the team can make up for, and different people have different strengths and weaknesses. But to answer the question briefly, yes.
That is all the time we have. There are so many questions that came in. Thank you so much. One thing that a lot of people are asking is the best way to get in touch with JamJar. So can you just let everybody know how the best way is to get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. Our email is invest@jamjarinvestments.com.
Perfect.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Next up, we've got Thibault from Full.
Hi there. I think everyone hears me now. Welcome. My name is Thibault. Thanks so much to Purdy and Margaret for pitching here. So maybe a very brief intro to Force Over Mass before we dig in. So we're an early stage fund. We're based in London, Victoria. We focus on all kinds of B2B technologies across 4 different verticals: FinTech, AI, SaaS, and Industry 4.0. So pretty much sector agnostic. We do it through 2 different vehicles. So we have a UK-only fund that is really focused on the seed stage, relatively small tickets between 100 and 300,000. And then we also have a pan-European growth fund. That's a 100 million fund. That's a little bit more towards scale-ups, but the same kind of businesses, just a bit later stage compared to our EIS fund. So our investment ticket is between 1 and 5 million on the growth fund. But of course, I'm here to tell you about how we bring support to our companies. So maybe a first thing which is kind of unique to FOMCAP is our network. I know lots of VCs will say we have a great network, and I'm sure a lot of VCs do. So our network, first of all, it's personal from the partners and the whole investment team, but also we have more than 100 different LPs. That's very different compared to most other VCs, where it's often skewed to some large institutional investors who need a certain allocation to VC. The benefit of having there's a lot of disadvantages to having a lot of LPs, but the benefit to having a lot of LPs is definitely for startups that within that LP base, there are a lot of entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs are often very committed to do something with the portfolio companies. They also they earn some money through various ways. So you have specialists in HR, marketing, financial services, construction, you name it. And they are, of course, very keen to share best practices, to share their network, maybe become a client. So we do a lot to actually boost their involvement with the portfolio companies, also through regular events or these days Zoom meetups. So that's a little bit about the network. And then in terms of when we are on the board, we focus on 5 focus areas. Importantly to say, we do back entrepreneurs. Often we're aware that the entrepreneur is the expert in what he or she is doing. And what we are actually focusing on is sharing what doesn't work. So we've invested over 120 companies to date. We've seen a lot, and we've definitely seen what doesn't work. And that is often easier to tell you than to tell you what has to work or how does it work. So we focus on what doesn't work. Across the 5 areas, we have board composition and functioning. Yeah, of course, we like a lean board, but we structure your communication as well, because we believe that is that reflects quite a bit how you communicate internally as well. Team structure, that is, once the CEO starts scaling, he or she is actually almost full-time hiring as well. So we help with profile screening, but also tie you up with some of the top HR agencies that we've carefully selected. Maybe our strength, I would say, is within business model and strategy. We really put a lot of importance on distribution and how to structure contracts or agreements with partners that can resell you in a way that all parties involved in the process are aligned and incentivized. So we very often hear a reseller agreement where, for example, you would give 20% commission and founders think that's done, we're going to sell this big time. But we've very often seen that those contracts, especially when it's with a consultant, you end up being on a marketplace somewhere. And yes, the marketplace is owned by the consultant, and you're one of 200 software providers. And once they resell you, they take a 20% commission. But in the end, they don't really have an incentive to resell just you, or they're not really committed to that because they have so many software providers on their platform. So we're going to look at how can we find the right resellers, or how can we structure the contract so that those resellers actually resell you. The next one is financial planning and KPIs. I'll come back to that in the next slide when we discuss flow. And then finally, ultimately, there's also funding strategy. Raising never really stops. Even if you just closed a Series A, you kind of need to think already about your next round. And that's also where we help, of course, as we see companies raising all the time. But maybe to come a bit towards Flow. So Flow started within FomCap. Flow has the same CEO as FomCap. So we do have some experience with building technology companies ourselves. Flow is actually a platform for startups that helps them with monitoring performance, but also improving documentation. It's really, documentation is checked by a professional team of content writers and accountants. When we do due diligence, we actually really believe that a lot of the signals of the strength of the startup team can already be seen from the documentation. Is there a proper data room? How long do we need to wait to see, for example, the model? Are the founders and the management, are they on top of the KPIs of the company? Having the right documentation really shows already a lot of how the company is run and how the company deals with clients. So together with Flow, we help you to map the right documentation, also help you with improving your reporting, finding the right KPIs, but we also going to check how you perform, for example, towards actuals. And the purpose is not really, of course, we know that sometimes budgets are off 20 to 30% or more. What we really want to go after is where are the discrepancies, where are the differences coming from, and what are the learnings. So yeah, that's a bit FomCap in a nutshell. If you want to contact us, you can contact us through pitch@fomcap.com. Myself, maybe a bit. I've been in corporate finance for quite a bit before starting at FomCap. I'm here now for 3 years. And I'm looking after a lot of new companies, new deals, and also help them, of course. So if you want to pitch, please reach out to pitch@fomcap.com. So first questions, do investors help solo founders build teams, or do they prefer the investors build the team before approaching? Good question. I would say, I think different investors will have a different answer to that. We do like that there's a team already in place, especially a CEO and a CTO. We find bringing in a CTO is often difficult because then it comes with some technical debt. But yeah, it depends, but preferably they're already there, the core team. Are you exclusively looking for B2B or are you open to B2C? Yeah, exclusively B2B and B2B2C, but no direct to consumer. I'm curious where VCs like yours are getting the funds from. So that's what I said in the beginning, that we have a bit of an atypical model in that we have a little over 100 LPs, and most of them are small family offices and entrepreneurs who exited a business or are still in business themselves. So they could be potential clients as well. And that is, of course, quite hard to go after a lot of LPs. On our side, that's a lot of work, but for the startups, I strongly believe that's a big plus because you have so many different insights that you can learn from our LPs who've done it before. This is what's the biggest reason startups in your portfolio fail? Question. I would say shooting on too many different opportunities at the same time. They see a lot of opportunities, they spend a lot of money on all of those, but sometimes it's good to pick one, two, start being successful in that, build a certain revenue buffer, to say it like that, that once you have a downturn, that at least you have some reserve that you can fall back on. And then after you have a base, you can start going after a couple of more opportunities. How do you interact with founders after investing? So another good question. So that it also depends from founder to founder. With most of the founders, we do open a Slack channel, of course, and almost call on by every 2 days or so, and then we try to have a board meeting every 4 to 6 weeks. So it's actually quite intensive. There's one founder which I go walking with sometimes. What's the most recurrent mistake you've seen in pitches? That's an easy one, I would say. A lot of companies just don't explain what they are doing in the first 1 to 3 slides. Like they start describing the market size, what kind of traction they have, but after 10 slides, I still don't know what the company is actually doing.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much. Now we are
Thank
going
you, Margaret.
Community Growth Ventures is up next. So keep your questions coming. We love seeing all the interaction. Oh, and quick question, where can people find you and contact you afterwards?
pitch@fomcap.com.
Fabulous, thank you. Oh, Abby, so I think you're on mute.
There you go.
There we go.
I think it's 2020, to be honest with you. So I'll kick it off again. Hi, everyone. I'm Abby. I'm from Community Growth Ventures. Different from everyone else, we are not a VC. We're an angel operating group, and we invest in pre-seed and seed stage startups led by underrepresented founders. So what underrepresented founders mean to us is women, people of color, and LGBT and more. We have already built a pipeline of over 170 startups. These are companies that have gone through a process that we have interacted with for the last 2 or 3 years. And out of that, we have made our first investment in Afrocentrics. And recently, we just invested in another company, but more on that later. We do have an active syndicate that launched this year and will be investing actively in 2021. So the team behind CGV, we have Denzel, which is our strategy lead. He comes with a financial background, And then Abigail, operation lead, that she comes with a compliant analyst. Myself, I'm the tech lead. I come from a full stack engineering background. So I used to work for government building end-to-end digital transformation. And now I help scale startups. And then Emmanuel, that is our marketing lead. He's like worked in early stage founders, and he is a guru in all things growth hacking. And we have a fantastic advisory team, generally from the FinTech stage, that help support. Generally, they come with 40 years of experience. And generally, our investment process is super simple because, again, we don't have any LPs. We are our own investors. So generally, people just come, apply via the online form. We have a data-driven framework that we've been developing for the last 3 years to evaluate the startup. And once they pass that, they go to DD, we negotiate the terms. And if we're happy with everything, again, we invest. And then again, after the investment, we do support growth and introduce rounds of investors to their next round for growth. And this is our criteria. It's quite simple. We don't take single founders. We do make an exception, so don't feel like that should be a blocker, but we do require you to be at least 25% diverse in the founding team. Again, we are wanting ambitious, amazing founders that are doing amazing stuff. Generally in MVP, we want early indication, and then we do our industry and agnostic. So currently we are quite young still. So we do have now 2 in our portfolio, 1 to be announced soon, which is in the FinTech space. But generally we have a award-winning Afro hair company, Afrocentrics, that's in our portfolio. And we already committed in 2 more companies that is in consumer brands and big data. So super excited. So this is our value proposition. Generally, these are the key 3 things. So deep network, true understanding, hands-on approach. What we mean by deep networks is because we all come from different backgrounds, the partners, we're able to, provide that leverage for founders to scale up in their journey, connect them to the right people, and help them through thick and thin, and also help them close rounds. We have a true understanding when people come to us from a diverse background. Generally, investment, as you know, in the UK, as you've seen so many reports, is not heavily invested in, like, for example, Black founders. We come from the backgrounds, we understand the insights, so we're able to understand the fragment market that you're entering into. So we do look out for that. And again, if we do invest, we have a hands-on approach, and then what that means is we will get our hands dirty. So if you need any help, i.e. like for example, like a COVID strategy that one of our portfolios needed help with, we're able to come in and advise for lawyers, advice on international expansion. We have networks and experience to help you through that. And yeah, if you want any information, that's our details. So quick and simple. I hope you enjoyed it. So question, what's the benefit for founders to use syndicate versus traditional funds? There's no specific difference towards the founders at all, because we will take care of the syndicate. So the syndicate itself is, so the question that you're asking here is quite different. So syndicate is usually a group of angels that come together under one umbrella to invest in the founder, which is easy on the cap table, compared to traditional funds, which I'm assuming maybe you mean venture capital or traditional angels. They just come as a singular thing, so you don't have the confusion. But generally, from a founder perspective, you're only dealing with that syndicate head or whoever is the main contact for the fund. I hope that answered it. Next question. Would you fund a business enabling access service to underrepresented people? Yeah, we support businesses that are helping underrepresented founders. So we are open to view those kind of companies as well in the businesses. What's your typical investment size? So before the syndicate, we generally invested from like 10 to 25K. With our syndicate now, we're able to contribute even more. So we're looking at a size ticket from 50K to 100K. So it's more impactful for the founder. What about 50s over? Yeah, everyone's open. Again, 50s over, I think it's a minority. But then actually, yeah. Is there a pitch deck or business plan template that you recommend us to use? So this is a quite good question, because we always get this question from our founders. If you go on our website, we have a resource Airtable that we dropped all the information for like new startups and founders to use. So if you don't know how to create a pitch deck, or you don't know how to do a business plan, you're able to go in our Airtable to get that information. Generally, for our fund, we do just accept pitch decks, so you don't need to do a business plan. You mentioned FinTech a lot. Would you also invest in startups that help social enterprise, charities, third sector organization? Unfortunately, we don't. We generally invest in companies that are making revenues in the long run. So if there are charities, we do not invest in this company. FinTech is because generally most of our partners and our advisory board are from a FinTech background, so they have more biases towards that. I don't personally have biases towards that. I'm into cybersecurity and FinTech. Are you looking for any more diverse partners, or do you consider you're complete? Again, we are looking for more diverse partners. So this is a really important question. So if you're interested in investing in 100% of founders, you can join our syndicate. So you can reach out to us and we can help you and show you why you should join and the value proposition on that side. Again, within our CGV team, we won't be expanding the team, but we might be in the future. The reason being is all of our partners are actually part-time, so we all have full-time job, and we do this on our side hustle because we want to help the ecosystem.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Abby. Big round of applause from us, and I'm sure the audience, but we can't see them. So last is Stephanie from Notion Capital.
For having me today. So Notion, we're a B2B SaaS-focused VC fund based out of London and investing in Europe's category-leading startups. We have made over 70 investments to date with ticket sizes ranging between $2 and $10 million in the first round of funding. We're sitting on a new Fund 4 that was raised at the end of 2019 of $170 million. My name is Stephanie. I'm part of this wonderful investment team, and you see a lovely picture of me here on the right. And I want today to talk a little bit more about what makes Notion unique as a VC. Well, there's mainly three things. So for one, Notion was founded by serial entrepreneurs. RBR Networks was a company selling secondhand IBM equipment that exited for 100 million. Star, an internet service provider, exited for 200 million. And Message Labs, a software security system that was in the cloud, antivirus scanner, started in 2000 and within 7 years grew to 150 million in annual recurring revenue. It was in 2008 the world's third largest software company in size, just behind Salesforce and WebEx, and was exited in 2008 as well to Symantec for 700 million. And it's that team that built, scaled, and exited those three businesses that started Notion back in 2009, so 11 years ago. And that team is still present today. So they're making part of our investment team, kind of having that entrepreneurial empathy, but also what it takes to build a really big business. And as part of that, we set up a platform team a couple of years later, headed by Stephen Millard, our chief platform officer. He was actually the CMO at Message Labs back in the days. He is organizing, for example, bi-weekly workshops with speakers such as Melissa Di Donato. She used to be the chief revenue officer at SAP. And giving a lot of workshops on how to smoothen your sales funnel from lead to cash, or take Gibson Biddle. He's the former VP of product at Netflix. He's giving a lot of workshops on how to build your product development roadmap. And then we have Maddie, for example, on our team. she is helping a lot with the talent recruitment for our portfolio company. So she has done a lot of research on unicorn hiring in the US and Europe, and what it takes to scale those teams over time from zero until they reach unicorn status, and kind of what type of leaders you should hire at what points in time, what kind of background. And the last person to mention on this team is Andy Lever. He is one of the operating partners. He is our go-to-market god, if you will. He's worked at 3 subsequent kind of companies, SaaS companies that turn out to be a unicorn later on. So think about Hortonworks, Workday, SuccessFactors, Ariba, Bazaar Voice. So he's definitely a good person to talk to, working with a lot of our companies kind of on a part-time basis, helping them achieve that go-to-market success. So I hope by now you kind of have the notion that we are only focused on B2B software companies. We've invested over 70 companies to date, start to now see the first large outcomes appearing in the form of, Tradeshift, Go Cardless, Currency Cloud, Babel, Paddle just announced a large fundraising last week, Dixa, Brighter, and many more. We've screened over 12,000 companies and came to these 70 plus companies. And if you are having at least a million in annual recurring revenue, you're growing fast, then we would like you to be part of our Notion family. So please do get in touch in that case, and help define B2B SaaS in Europe. Well, thank you so much. Looking forward to the questions. Are you happy to be the first money in? Let me stop my screen sharing if I can. Hold on a minute. There we go. Typically not, no. So we come in at the Series A and B stages, sometimes the Series C stages, but we are not seed funding, so usually coming in after the seed investors. 3 things that make a founder stand out. It is a lovely question. I love that. I think for one, being a good kind of salesperson helps a lot. So kind of having that charisma in order to present out the vision that you're trying to build. I think that's actually the second part. So the charisma, but then the vision. So do you have an honestly like big thing in mind that you hope to achieve over the next 5 to 7 years, that's truly differentiated. And I think probably a perceptiveness, that is the third quality, a perceptiveness to taking in a lot of different opinions, whether it's from me, whether it's from anyone else, but being able to learn very quickly on the basis of what other people have done successfully, and then applying that to your business, and taking out the best things, and then differentiating on where your USP is, I would say. What are the biggest differences you see between the US and the UK startup market? What can UK companies do to attract US firms? Another good question. I think I see the markets converging a little bit. I think, as much as I like to say, I think in many ways the UK is very much different. I see a lot more creativity going on in Europe maybe than I see in the US, but that's a personal stance. But then in some aspects, rounds are getting more hyped up. There's faster processes that are being run from a fundraising perspective, so that's converging with the US. I think what can UK companies do to attract US funding? Really be pounding on the traction. Do you have product market fit? How fast are you growing? Are still very much like US centric metrics that European investors want to see more of, but also the US investors. So top line revenue, I would say, is most important. Keeping the burn in mind, of course. Do you invest in real estate? Absolutely, as long as it's B2B, it's software, then we certainly look at that. So we have a portfolio company called Advinix. They help real estate agents become very powerful on the web. They used to be offline, they're coming online. They're offering the full platform for them. So that's kind of in the real estate sector, but very much software focused. Why do UK VCs need to see revenue before investing? I can only answer this. Well, not all VCs, first of all, but I think when you talk about the Series A stage, even that is not always the case. We have done some moonshots investments that are very deep tech that don't have any revenue, but otherwise, yeah, typically yes. Why? Because it lowers the risk profile, quite frankly, right? If you see that the market clearly wants to pay for this product and a lot of it, then once you see a couple of like 10 times the same sales process taking place, there is a little bit of a, hey, there is some traction in the market. We can see this taking off. And so I think that's one of the most foremost reasons why we would like to see revenue. What percentage of equity do founders have by the time you have invested? I would say definitely over 50%, ideally way more than that, as high as possible. Hard to say, but you get about diluted 20% per round. So it leaves you about like, I would say 70% by the time you look at it for the A round, right? Depending on whether we come in at the A or the B or anywhere in between. Which are the main 3 KPIs you look at before investing? I wish I could distill it down to 3 KPIs, though. That would make my life so much easier. But you ask for the main ones. So I'm having a strong finance background, so I'm always interested to look at some of the KPIs there. I would say CAC payback is one of my favorites. Gives a great kind of unit economics perspective on what it takes to build a big business. Second, of course, and always revenue traction or some of the like magic numbers around that. How effective is your sales strategy? And then I go for the cash position. Always track that one.
Awesome. Thank you so
Fantastic.
much,
Thank you, Stephanie.
That was fantastic. Got through so many questions.
Thank you so much for having me. Cheers.
There's loads more questions that came through for Stephanie and for the other investors as well. So all of you do feel free to read through and have a look at the different questions on the YouTube channel. We're just going to bring back Anthony as well, so we can bid everyone adieu and give a final.
We have a farewell gift.
A farewell gift for you all.
Hello, everyone. All right, so I hope that was useful. Now I need to give out my special magic code. Let me go find the magic code 1 second, which actually you guys might have faster than me. All right, do you want to give the magic code?
Sure. So you can get a 3-month discount to SeedLegals, and you'll get 10 quid off the run or scale package. And the code is SL300. We're going to be putting this in a chat, and we'll also put it in the email, which everybody will get afterwards as well.
All right. And if you've got any questions that weren't answered, either on the discount code, or if you need anything, you can also hit me up directly, anthony@seedlegals.com. I hope that was useful.
Anyone that mentioned that they arrived late, the whole film will be available on YouTube in a couple of minutes, so you can watch it from beginning to end and stop and pause and have a look at all the questions, all of which will come up. So just head back to the SeedLegals YouTube page and you'll see it on there to watch from beginning to end.
Yeah. And big thank you to all of our VCs who came today. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.